Okay, so my face looks shiny because I'm using a lamp this time and not my actual YouTube circle thingy. So excuse the glare. Hope it's not too bad. So thank you everybody for coming to Monday Night Chat with SK. And tonight, Danixa is our host and is going to facilitate the conversation. Um, just like every week, we want to encourage both the facilitator and the panelists. Tonight is about mental health, depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder, based on my experience. And so, Danixa, you want to get started?
Sure. So without further ado, hi, I'm Danixa. I'm tonight's interim host. So we're going to jump right into it. So Shamonas, tell us about yourself.
So tell y'all about myself. So I am first a African-American woman. I'm a mother, grandmother, a sister, and daughter. I'm a Brooklynite, although I live in Long Island now. But I'm also a community organizer and community advocate. But I'm also a consumer of mental health. I've been suffering for a long time, but was diagnosed 12 years ago. And so I have been on a journey to be a stand for people of color who experience mental health, because it's not something that has been talked about a lot. So I'm all those things and more. I am a aspiring author, and a singer, and I wear many hats, but tonight we're going to talk about something sacred and vulnerable to me. Hopefully no tears stream down, but sometimes you have to experience your experience. So if it happens, just, flow with me, join me, and encourage that experience.
All righty. And I want to emphasize too as well that this is definitely a safe space. So if you're also processing with Shamona and you feel inclined to do so, please share in the chat. You don't have to. If it resonates with you, which I'm pretty sure it will, definitely let that sit with you. So for our next question, why is Mental Health Awareness Month very important to you, and specifically under the umbrella that we're talking about with bipolar disorder, depression, and anxiety?
So why it's important to me is because for a long time, when I would feel the emotions or feelings that I had throughout my entire life, I just thought that something was wrong with me, right? That was the sentiment. Even as a child, felt like something was wrong with me. And there were times when I was told something was wrong with me. I was either called a crybaby because I was hyper emotional, or my feelings or emotions were sometimes ostracized or minimized because something was wrong with me, or whatever was going on with me was not received as me having an experience. So when I finally found that awareness of what was actually happening with me and what I was experiencing, I felt that it was important for me to then share that out to the world so that anyone else who was experiencing that could understand that it's not about anything being wrong with them, but that they were having an experience of something that was affecting their lives or their process or their emotions that could be nurtured, could be is often natural, and could be treated if necessary. And although Mental Health Month, because everything has a month now, it's just, to kind of like synthesize the conversation about mental health and kind of like highlight it and, kind of like put an emphasis on. Mental health happens every day. I had some statistics. My notes are not near me right now, but the statistics are very, very scary. And when we finish this, I'll definitely send the links to all those that are connected to me. But the statistics are very scary, and we see every day how mental health or the lack of mental health is it's showing its ugly head in our society, in our family relationships, in our interpersonal relationships, whether it be familial or friendships or through our work environments. And so I want to take, how do you say it, ownership and make contribution in Mental Health Awareness Month, because I want to not only share my experiences, but share the importance of talking about mental health in this month and talk about how it affects our world and our society and some things that we can do to make change, or at least to start seeing change.
Thank you for sharing that, Shamona. It's very important to recognize that while this is a month, it's important to take care of your mental health 365 days a year. And you've definitely been a champion of that. I remember when we first met and, you had just shown some more light on it. I felt like in a way that I didn't even consider mental health to be an important aspect of health until I met you. So it's definitely inspiring to hear that. Um, what is one thing that you wish people knew about either bipolar disorder, anxiety, or depression, or all three? And yeah, like what would be one thing you wish people would know?
So one thing I wish I would like for people to know is that have mental health, like depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder, all are things that everyone experiences, right? And a lot of these experiences are on spectrums, right? And when considering that everybody experiences it and there could be spectrums, that means that it can affect a group of people in one way that it may not affect a group of others in another way, right? So one thing that I've, through my journey of learning what depression was, what anxiety was, what bipolar disorder was, I've realized that although, we all know about the stigmatism around mental health in itself, we have an ideal about what depression looks like. We have an ideal of what anxiety looks like, and we have an ideal of what bipolar disorder looks like. There are lots of diagnoses, right? But in my experience, people tend to look at these diagnoses or these particular experiences in the most extremes ever, right? If someone says they're depressed, most people's picture in their mind, someone just, down in the dumps, ready to jump off a bridge, like wallowing in tears, just can't get up in the morning, don't like life, don't like themselves, don't like anybody, don't like anything. And depression is not that simple. Depression is, again, it's something that can be in a spectrum, and sometimes depression can come and go. You can see somebody that's through the roof happy, like, you see them, they live a life like it's golden, but when they leave the presence of a social environment, they go home and the darkness tends to, take over, right? Especially someone who's not in treatment, especially someone who doesn't know their triggers. A lot of people pretend or act okay when dealing with depression. So depression doesn't look just like someone that you could walk up to and be like, yeah, that person really looks depressed. Sometimes you won't even see it. And that's the same with anxiety. Most people, that someone who is anxiety driven, you can see it. They're probably someone who's worrisome or very like shooken up, or have this look about them. And the one thing people need to understand about mental health, it doesn't have a look. It doesn't look like anything, and why it is something that most people miss the bar on. I know you guys hear stories about people who are celebrities and famous, and they either kill themselves or become drug induced or have overdoses. You're like, why? They have so much money, they have so much notoriety, they have so much of this or that. Why were they so unhappy? Because you can't see it. And when you, in most times, like if you see somebody with a broken arm or a broken leg, you tend to know, hey, I'm going to help you do this, right? Or you kind of could see the pain, where the pain is coming from. Oh, you know, whatever. But with mental health or mental illness, it's not that simple. Now, when it comes to bipolar, which is something that has been one of the biggest journeys of my life, and really coming to terms with and accepting, bipolar disorder has been, I would say, has gotten a bad rep. It has gotten a bad reputation from when you see it in the movies. I've seen movies about bipolar depression. And although some of it is true because everybody's experience is different, it is, again, sought as the most extreme. I don't know how many times when I started to self-disclose, people would say, you don't look like you have bipolar, or you don't act like you have bipolar disorder, or you so calm. What you mean you have bipolar? And it's not that I have bipolar. I suffer from bipolar, just like I would suffer from suffer from diabetes or suffer from some other ailment. I'm not bipolar. I suffer from bipolar. I suffer with the symptoms of bipolar disorder. And so with that, the stigmatism and then the ideals coupled together, it's really hard sometimes for people, one, to self-disclose because of the shame that comes along with it. Because when people have the stigmatism and they have the ideal, they then decide your value, right? And two things that happen, they either empathize, sympathize. And so I encourage people to, you don't have to spend your waking moments thinking about mental health and trying to discover what every diagnosis is. But if you see someone or someone self-disclose to you, ask questions and try to have an understanding, and try to help subside some of your stigmatism, and try to be on the more of a side of empathy than sympathy.
Thank you for sharing that. Empathy versus sympathy is extremely important, because empathy, sympathy is, wow, that sucks, rather than empathy being, I can't, like, wow, I'm picturing it. I'm almost imagining your experience. How can I help? And that leads me to my next question, because we are all not an island. We come from different families, different family systems, and different relational systems. And in that vein, how can family and friends support their loved ones with mental wellness? And I use the term mental wellness because mental illness tends to get a bad rap. And in some cases, the root of a lot of mental illness is trauma. So,
Mhm.
in terms of family and friends, how can they help in supporting?
Um, I I think there's various ways, and every situation is different, right? Because some families may need to take extreme courses of action, where that can include like family counseling. It can include some type of interventions, depending on the experience of the individual. But on the very minimum of the support, or the, and the support that you can give a friend or family member that who is experiencing some form of mental wellness issues, is to just kind of just hear them out, right? And just listen. And that doesn't mean allow the person to overpower you with all of their, how can I say, I don't want to say junk, because that's sometimes the term we use, but like, don't allow the person to just like overpower you with so much information, because it is a lot. Every day is a new journey. Every day could be a new challenge. But when they're asking for that moment, right? Try to be understanding, right? But I also tell family and friends to create boundaries. Because what happens is when you don't create boundaries, you become frustrated and irritable yourself. And that creates a very it's not healthy for either party, right? So if you have someone in your family who is suffering from depression or anxiety or any number of mental health issues, and they're always calling you, right? You have to know your limits, right? So you want to offer support to the point of where you can offer support. Know your limits. Ask how you can help, how you can be helpful, and be clear on how you cannot help. For example, I suffer from anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder. I'm very vocal about my diagnoses, and I'm very vocal about being a peer support and an advocate. I had a friend reach out to me and say, hey, I'm going through a depressive episode and I really need somebody to talk to, or I want to know if I'm dealing with depression or whatever have you. At the time, I was going through my own depressive episode and really could not be very supportive. And so I said to that friend, I truly understand that you're having a dark moment right now. I'm actually going through something myself, but I can be helpful by giving you a hotline to call that I use and has been often helpful for me. That friend didn't take that very well because they had not experienced therapy and they weren't really bought into therapy and didn't want to talk to a stranger about their issue. But that didn't mean that I needed to sacrifice my health to help that friend. I had created the boundary. I have told them how I can support, and I gave them a resource. And that's all I could do. Sometimes we feel like we have to sacrifice ourselves to help someone else, but all that causes more friction, resentment, that causes both parties to have more of a struggle. In addition to that, if you have a family or loved one who, like if you're a caregiver, or if it's your spouse, or if it's your child, or if you're a sibling, you want to start doing some research yourself to figure out, okay, what is the first step? And get yourself some help. Like the National Alliance of Mental Illness, which is a NAMI, which is an organization that I have been very connected with since I was diagnosed. They also have a family to family support group where family members of family members with a diagnosis or mental health challenges can go to get support for themselves. And they even have like days where they would have like family days when the family member can go to like a yoga class, and they have like different support groups where they can talk about the stress that is on them having to care for someone with mental illness. So finding yourself resources that help you, researching and finding out like what type of mental health services your loved ones healthcare insurance covers, right? Because not all healthcare insurance is equal. So if you're a caregiver, you want to look into, okay, if they have Medicaid or whatever health insurance, you want to look into, okay, what type of medical supports we can get. Okay, if it's a psychiatrist, psychologist. I have my actual health insurance provides also acupuncture and other therapies that can support me in feeling healthy and in recovery. So exploring like what resources are available to you and just reaching out for help, right? So those are some of the things I would say family members can do.
Thank you for sharing that, Shimon. It's very important. I remember hearing in class recently the concept of making sure you put your oxygen mask on first before assisting other people. Think about, how many of us have traveled and they've given that demonstration, but it's true. And thank you for sharing your experience that highlights that. And in the vein of self-care and mental wellness, what are your favorite self-care strategies? What are your go-tos?
There are so many. So I would say self-disclosure, or like one thing to note. Sometimes one thing will work at one point in your life that later on it may not work for you anymore, right? So you may have had in some point in your life was a favorite thing to do. And then maybe later on, let's say months from that time, you try that particular coping skill and it doesn't work. So what I try to do is my biggest thing is monitoring my coping skills and really being focused on where I'm at, right? So I buy all the time, I buy like little notebooks and little health books. And there's a bunch of apps, like believe it, a bunch of apps. But one of the things that's working for me the best right now is an app called Balance. Balance right now is doing a promotion where you can do 1 year subscription for absolutely free. But I think the yearly subscription is like $99. I would take the free subscription and then X them out after the year if you don't want to spend the $99. Because believe me, there's going to be another app that pops up later on. But what Balance does, it's like a meditation app that puts you through a series of different meditations to help you deal with different emotions. So they have programs for like sleep. So someone who suffers from bipolar disorder, there's two things that happen. You either are in a manic episode, which is where you're lacking sleep, you can't really sleep, you're like busy, fast talking. If you're somebody that know me and you know that I'm like, chances are I'm going through a manic episode. So I'm not sleeping. I'm up all night, talking fast, very impulsive. I compare myself, if you're a Marvel fan, I compare myself to Jean Grey, which is also the Phoenix. So if you've seen the X-Men or you're interested, look up Jean Grey, the Phoenix. That's pretty much what my experience has been as someone who suffers from bipolar disorder. So Balance helps with some of that. It helps you do meditation with sleep. It helps you do meditation with calm and ease. But the other thing is that what people don't realize, as you're dealing with your mental illness or your mental health challenge, life is still happening. So you're still going through heartbreak. You're still going through financial issues. You're still going through regular social, emotional concerns. You're still having fights with your family. Everything is still happening in life. So you have to also manage those things. So the Balance app has things that help you deal with anxiety or conflict, or one of the ones I want to try now is easing loneliness. And so it's a really, really good app. I think it's amazing. Also, if you're in treatment, there's an app called Mood that helps you track your medication. And it also helps you track your doctor's appointments. In the app, it says your team. So it has your psychiatrist and your therapist, and maybe even your PC, your physician, if they're all in communication around your health, because you have to still, your PC is still involved if you're taking medication, to see that you're not getting any liver damage or any kidney damage from the medication, and that it's actually doing what it's supposed to do and not affecting your medical health. And that your symptoms are not directly affected to your medical health, that they're basically psychological issues. So Mood, Balance, and a couple of other apps, but the apps are really like accessible because they're like right on your phone and you could just manipulate them right away. And like I said, notebooks are really helpful, writing stuff down, journaling. But a sweet spot I have is like picking that one thing that feels good. And what I used to do is I used to go to get a massage. Getting that deep tissue massage and just allowing yourself to just go is amazing. it's a part of self-care, but it's also a part of mental health care.
Amen to that one, especially the massaging. Whether, I feel like whether you run or not, you definitely need that deep tissue massage to just release all of that.
And the hot rocks. Ooh,
Oh
jab.
yes, if you've not tried Swedish hot rocks, please do. It's amazing, and cupping is good as well. It's good for circulation.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. So in terms of mental health, there are unfortunately barriers. We are moving into an awareness as a society of concepts like trauma, mental health, and depression, but unfortunately, there are still barriers. But what do you see as the biggest barriers in accessing mental health care, and especially for Black people?
Well, I've seen a lot of things change recently, right? We're actually having the conversations, right? Unfortunately, in our community, in our culture, any form of healthcare has been years, light years behind the cuff, right? So, like in the last, 30, 40 years, I don't like to call them our counterparts, but other races and people in affluent communities had access to mental health care. And then we used to call it, and this is just me being real, we'd be like, only white people go to therapy, right? So now that we're realizing that mental health affects all cultures, all people, all races, there's conversations being had. Danixa knows a lot of my horror stories. And I think what is one of the barriers is that when they try to create this equality and understanding that all races are affected by mental health, we get mental health services in our community, but of course they're not up to par and not providing the services that really is needed for people to be into recovery. Everything is incumbent on your ability to have health insurance. So if I don't have health insurance, I could basically hang myself and kill myself because I can't pay for treatment with a psychologist or psychiatrist or pay for my medication. And that is just diabolical. It is inhumane and is disgusting. Um, in addition to that, there's a huge bureaucracy and a limitation. Some insurance companies provide you with a subset amount of visits. Like, let's say there was a time when I was I was in severe depression, right? Because they take you up and down depending on what signs and symptoms, because with mental health, it's all about what you say and how you behave. That's how they diagnose you. So at one point or another within my treatment, my therapist felt that my symptoms and my behavior were more of severe. But in most cases, when somebody is going through severe depression, one or two things can happen. They can either be hospitalized or they would increase their cognitive therapy visits. When they tried to increase my visits, I had to go through a whole process just to get them to give me an extra visit with my therapist per week. But because I am a very resourceful person, I researched what insurance company would provide the best mental health services that I could afford or that I was eligible for, which is United Healthcare Community Partners. And it's like a dual thing. You get Medicare and Medicaid, and Medicare pays for some of your services, and Medicare pays for some, and Medicare pays for whatever, one or two of both, Medicare and Medicaid, right? So you have dual support, you have dual coverage. But like I said, I'm resourceful. The average person may not be. And it's like, I literally saw it on the commercial, and there was actually old people in the commercial that they were talking about. But when I researched the health insurance company and I saw the different things that they offer, I was like, wait, I need this. And then I found out my eligibility and was able to get it. So that's, pretty much what the issue is, finding the health insurance that is going to cover the services that you need. So those are the huge barriers. The other thing is the quality of service that you're going to get. So once you can pay for the services, what's the quality of services? And that's not to say that someone who went to school for psychology may not be good at what they do. I was hospitalized on 4 occasions. My first time hospitalized, I was in Kings County Hospital. And I don't know if everybody know, Kings County used to have the G building, which is now the R building. I was admitted into the R building. And when I was admitted there, this is my first time ever in a mental health facility. And it was scary. It was scary. I stayed on the first floor, which is where you first get admitted, for about 2 days. And then when I finally got a room, I was in a room with people who had diagnoses. Like it was scary, right? And you don't want to, how you say it, what you call it? Like separate people, like try to categorize people. But the staff really didn't do a good job of like managing the environment. So I would be in a room with someone who was schizophrenic, who, if you know anything about schizophrenia, has, they show a lot of violent behavior and they hallucinate and stuff like that. And my symptoms weren't as severe. So I was in an environment that was unhealthy for me. But because of the lack of services in our community, it was like, look, we don't have enough beds. You're just gonna have to suck it up, right? The nurses would be yelling and be very rude to you and nasty to you and really weren't trying to help you through your process. So as you're trying to heal and recover in your mental health episode, you have someone treating you like trash and causing more trauma. But fast forward, maybe 2 years later, I ended up going to a hospital on 14th Street. I think it was Methodist, one of the Methodist hospitals. Oh my God, I felt like I was at the Hilton Hotel. They were very kind to me. It was very clean. I didn't even stay long. They were able to get me to a space where I was able to go home the same day because they took the time to really like help me through processing what my trigger was and what was going on with me, and gave me really good next steps. And so I was able to leave there and not have to stay the 10 days that they usually allot when you're admitted. And then fast forward again, I ended up in Brookdale, which is in Brownsville, and it was worse than Kings County. So it's like, even though we're now saying, okay, everybody experiences it, the quality is still poor. So the barriers are still there. And those are just some of the stories. That's just my experience. There was one time I saw a woman that was like at the Dunkin' Donuts. She's usually at the Dunkin' Donuts in my neighborhood. And she's like usually like, kind of like not really there all the time. Like she's kind of like spaced out, whatever, and very violent and belligerent. She was literally in the same like small space with me one time. And I remember she had tried to like attack me at the Dunkin' Donuts. And now I'm face to face with this woman in this small space in our hospital. I freaked out. I was like, oh my God. And I told the nurse, I'm like, oh my goodness. And they was like, did she bother you? I was like, no, she didn't bother me, but I'm scared. Like, so it's just, it's really difficult because you want to see people as equals. You want to understand everybody's experience. I didn't think I was better than anybody, but it was a very scary experience because I didn't feel like they managed or handled the situation properly. And they didn't understand. They would yell at you. Like they would be like, Kirkland, go get your food. And I felt like I was in jail and not in a hospital. So it was. I'm getting traumatized just talking about it. Wow.
And thank you for sharing that, Shamona. Like care is one of the standard of care is very important because I'm studying school counseling, and one of the things that we're taught is similar to the doctor's creed of do no harm. And it's really unfortunate that you have people graduate from certain schools or or certain programs that don't really emphasize care of the person, and also culturally responsive care, because it shouldn't be that if you live in I'm not sure what the zip code for Brownsville is, but it shouldn't be that if you live in Brownsville you receive this one type of care, but if you take the 4, 5, or 6 to 14th Street, you get a second indifferent standard of care. And
Mhm.
transitioning just slightly to our youth, because unfortunately the coronavirus pandemic is still affecting mental health, and we're just starting to see the effects of this period on our youth. How can we as a community support our youth going through mental health struggles, or how do we support our youth in general as a community with mental health?
Um, that is almost like a whole nother chat on in itself. That's something I've been kind of like thinking about and exploring. And Danixa, I've tried so many ways and trying to figure out how do I insert myself and try to be a support. Um, it's really difficult because um as adults in our minds, we feel like we look as children. We're like, okay, they're children. Like our ideal of what children, our ideals of what children are versus what we see children experiences, is there's a contrast, right? For example, just recently I was told that there was a group of 10 and 11-year-olds in East New York with knives trying to cut each other. There's a group of 8 trying to cut up another 11-year-old. And then you had 2 adults across the street laughing at the situation, right? And so I think for children, it's a number of things. It's upbringing, its environment. And I'm not saying, like, when I say upbringing, I'm not saying, oh, it's the parents' fault or anything. I mean upbringing from every aspect of upbringing, right? Community, financial, nutrition, all of that. Because, believe it or not, in my studies and just me exploring my own experience with mental health, not only does your treatment with your condition, the chemical balance of it, and that's what it is most times, is the chemical imbalance, not only trauma, is sometimes contributed to your nutrition. And so if our kids are not getting enough sleep, or if they're not eating properly, in addition to the trauma and the environment, and also the influences that they see, they're going to express those traumas or those experiences in ways that may not be helpful or serve them, or healthy, right? So that's why I said it's like a big thing, because there's so much that needs to be done. But when talking about your immediate circle or the kids that you touch and agree with on a day-to-day basis, I would say create a space for them to share how life is affecting them, and don't minimize them to just children. They are actually just smaller human beings, or smaller reflections of us. So the same way we operate in life and in the world, they may not have to pay bills, but they still have stress. Children have stress, they have stress. And I think, and when we get ourselves out of the idea that because they're children, they don't have stress, or they don't have things that bother them, they don't have emotions or feelings, or the other things that could happen to a human being of any age, that is going to put us in a space of empowerment and allow our children a place to thrive. We have to give them a space to be humans. So providing those spaces, without judgment, and without making it about ourselves. I that was a lesson I learned. I would always attach any experience my children had to me. It would always be, but I did this for you, or I didn't raise you like that, or I blah blah blah. It's not about me. It wasn't about me. Whatever they're experiencing, it's not about me. It's their experience. So I had to take myself out of their experience and allow them to experience their experience and sit in that moment. So creating a non-judgmental space. And then once you create that space of non-judgmental in your teaching, learn, right? I think a lot of times when we are trying to teach, we forget that we have to learn. Just yesterday, I was talking to a friend, and I mean, I was saying some profound things. I was like, girl, let me tell you, you should, da, 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 da. And I was like, wait a minute, Shamona, practice what you preach. Because, I needed to hear that for myself. So in your teaching, learn, because then that's how we grow. And sometimes, honestly, just tell kids you love them, and be honest. My son told me the other day, Mom, what's wrong with saying vagina? That is, when did we get here? He's like, Mom, it's a body part, and we have been trying to protect and rightfully so, we've been trying to protect, we've been trying to sugarcoat, we've been trying to minimize, box it up, make it pretty, a lot of things that kind of hindered us as a people. And we should no longer be doing that to ourselves or our children. And so when I say be honest, be very honest, and provide that space for healing, support, accountability, and eat it. When a child tells you you're wrong, eat that. We're very quick to say, no, I'm not wrong. I didn't do that. Right. So like I said, it's a bigger topic, and maybe we can just create a chat around that. But yeah, the youth need us to like really be still. Be still.
That was awesome, Shamona. And that listening without judgment, that's something I'm still working on and will definitely need to incorporate as a future counselor, because I've heard some things already from kids that I'm like, whoa. But it just shows how, things are evolving in terms of technology and providing those safe spaces. It's super crucial. And that actually got into my last question about how parents can support their children in facilitating their mental wellness. You hit all the points in providing safe spaces, accountability, and just that raw honesty. And they really appreciate that because they're looking up to us, and they may not have bills, but unlike, Lottie in the back. with,
Maybe they should have bills.
right,
Pay for that water you drinking, or
right, but like
give
with
them a little allowance and say, a bottle of water is 10 cents in this house. Let them see some type of, I mean, there's so many things we
yeah,
can do.
yeah,
And one of my last points, really about this whole thing about just in general is check in on yourself. Like
yeah.
again, going back to that, putting on your face mask before helping someone else. If you yourself feel like there are some ways that you're tipping the scale, and no one's perfect. That doesn't mean you have a diagnosis. That doesn't mean
Mhm,
that you need to take medication. Mental health is a part of your health. Is one of the
mhm,
things that I'm trying to build the a real understanding about, and really like make it make sense, is that mental health should be a part of our daily activity, right? Just like we check our weight and our heart rates
mhm,
and all this and that, the brain is one of the most powerful muscles in our body. And we treat it as if it's, one of the most, irrelevant parts of our body. It kind of like none of the rest of our body will function without it,
mhm,
other than the heart, really. Your heart could beat if your brain did, but the heart and the mind are the two things that we need most in order to function. And so we have to stop thinking of our mental health and our brains as an afterthought, um, and really appreciate it for what it does for our body. It tells our eyes what to see, our nose what to smell, our mouth what to taste. And so it's a really important part of us. And so I just encourage people to check in, even if it's, just take a 5-minute meditation and just sit still and think about what that means to you tonight. In your experience, not mine or Danixa's, just in your own.
And I'd also like to echo what our good friend Mayfield said in the chat. Definitely thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty, because without, yourself and others who are just willing to be honest, you know, you encourage a lot more people to, you know, take care of their own selves and inspire people in their own walks. And, you know, hopefully everybody can take this information and, you know, do some research. Check out NAMI, check out the Balance app, check out the Mood app. There's definitely a lot of
Mhm.
technology out there. And in the spirit of the Monday night chats is usually a call of action or I guess a tidbit that you would like to leave. Shamona, what would be your call of action for all of us, especially during Mental Health Awareness Month?
Um, I would say, you know, cheesy plug right now. I am doing the mental health walk this Sunday. So if you're interested in walking with me, it's actually not a walk. From what I understand, it's like a day of festival, you know, to bring awareness to mental health and celebrate those who have been in recovery and have been pioneering to build resources within New York City around mental health and really fighting. So if you're interested in taking that walk with me, Sunday, May 22nd at South Street Seaport, um, from 11 to 2:30, I believe it is. And there's going to be photo booths and music and all this stuff. So it's going to be a fun day. So if you want to do that, I also am fundraising. So if you would like to make a donation, NAMI provides free support for families. So all that stuff I told you that NAMI did for me, it was free. The support group, someone to being trained as a peer coach. I didn't know anything about bipolar disorder until I met NAMI. NAMI also let me know that there was nothing wrong with me. They trained me as an advocate. They helped me to empower myself as a mental health consumer, and they empowered me to be the voice. Like I was the driver in my mental health treatment, not the doctors, not the psychologists, not the hospitals. I was a driver. I was always the driver. Like, oh no, you're not gonna do that. No, I'm not gonna take that medication. Let me research it first. No, that dosage is too high. No, that dosage is too low. But if I had not gotten the support and training from NAMI that I got, I wouldn't have been able to be that empowered. And, you know, just like I said before, you know, people that look like me weren't in those rooms. So think about how many people like me are not empowering themselves and are being over medicated or undertreated in the mental health services. So I am very dedicated to NAMI in that way because they provided that service for me. And in addition to that, I would say, again, just take that moment to think about what mental health means to you, right? And it, like I said, it doesn't mean being medicated. It doesn't mean having a diagnosis or anything like that. It could just mean, you know what, it's summertime now. I'm going to sit by the lake and read a book, or you know what, I'm going to take some time to learn how to do yoga or meditation or Pilates or whatever, you know, I'm going to try acupuncture or those hot cups like Danixa said. But mental health is really, really important. So take the time to figure out what it means to you and what you're willing to do to maintain yours.
Thank you for that, Shamona. And again, the NAMI walk is this Sunday. Well, walk is this Sunday at South Street Seaport, 11 a.m. Free goodies. And also, Shamona and I will be there. And this concludes our conversation. But as always, if you guys have any questions or would like to share out openly, now is a great time. If you want to put that in the chat, great. But we would like to thank you for joining us and really, you know, take this conversation and really meditate.
I do meditate sometime in my program too. Sometimes I meditate in my program too. I sit down, think about what I'm going to do the next day. I take out the book, write something down, and remember, I be thinking about my mother and my sisters. I said, oh, I had the time with my sisters, my mother, my aunt, all of us. We had good time them days.
Yeah.
You remember, Mona? Remember we had them days we had
I
in
do
the
remember.
house?
Yeah. And grief, like Vance is sharing, like, our mother passed away some 17, 18 years ago. And so grief is also something that can affect your mental health. So if you're someone who may not have processed your grief, there's an organization called ICL. It's the Institute for Community Living. They provide grief counseling. I went to a grief counseling and support group where they helped me to process my grief. Now, that doesn't mean that the grief goes away, but it helps you to understand the different stages of grief, and that everybody goes through it differently. And just so you can identify that, this is a natural part of life, that, grieving is natural and you get to experience it your own way, but also help you to process, any part of that grief, stages of grief, in a way that's healthy and that you can heal and, really take time to really understand what it means to you. So again, that's the Institute for Community Living. And again, I'll share some of these resources with the group via text or email if I have your email. Thank you, Vance.
Thank you for sharing, Vance.
You're welcome.
I'd also like to share really quick a resource that I often use called Talkspace. Sometimes I don't have the time to sit down in the therapist's office, so I do teletherapy. It's not for everyone, but it's helped me just being busy. It's about $100 a month. That's something that's affordable for myself. But if you're looking for something similar, Talkspace is great too. And yeah, and Shamona will share out all those great resources, because sharing is caring, and hopefully you all will be able to share that out with your networks and just keep sharing it. We want everybody to know about these resources, and they shouldn't just be kept to a select few. On that note, it was great speaking with you as always, Shamona, and learning even more about your experience. Like I said, you continue to inspire me. You're the biggest reason why I chose the program that I'm in, and definitely, everyone look out for more talks on mental health, especially on children's wellness.
And I want to thank Danixa for hosting Monday Night Chats tonight, which is usually my role, being SK. So I want to thank Danixa for saying yes and, standing in my place tonight and really allowing me a space to be vulnerable on my own podcast. So thank you, Nixie, for always stepping in and being a good thought partner and wing girl at all times. And I want to thank all of you that showed up and continue to show up to the Monday Night Chat. We will have our Oprah stage one day. But we'll all look back and be like, we used to be on Monday Night Chat.
Right.
Or our TED Talk. That is one of the goals, to get a TED Talk. So yes. As you pray to whatever spiritual being you have, let them know that, we have some goals in mind to share with the world some of what we talk here on Monday Night Chat. And again, thank you for coming and appreciate you. It is time. So you guys enjoy your lovely night, and we appreciate you joining.
Yes, have a blessed week, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, wait.